This your girl Ros B with Realistically Speaking, where we keep it real. We talk about real topics and real people in real life situations. Thank y'all for joining me today. This is a new show, and I know people are going to be like, what's she talking about? Well, today I'm going to talk about me so that y'all can know a little bit about me and know who you're listening to. And it'll give you some insight. So when you join me, you're like, okay, so let me give y'all a little background about me. As y'all know, my name is Roslyn. As a kid, I didn't have my mom in my life. My mom didn't raise me. My grandmother raised me, my dad's mom, which is my paternal grandmother. I was a side piece kid. My dad was married, creeping around with my mom, and then they had me. And funny thing is, me and one of my brothers are 6 months apart. His my brother from his wife and I myself are 6 months apart. But anyway, I grew up having abandonment issues. I grew up looking for love in all the wrong places. I tried to commit suicide at the age of 11. My grandmother was very, very strict, very abusive, verbal and physical. I would go to school sometimes with whelps all over my back, your shirt sticking to you, just different stuff. So, but she was a great provider. I will give her that. She was a great provider. She taught me a lot. She gave me a taught me a lot about life. She gave me a lot of wisdom. A lot of people tell me, "You're so young, but you're so wise," and I guess that's because my grandmother raised me. And that seems to be the new norm today, where a lot of grandmothers are raising their kids. I even raised my grandsons. So, but anyway, going to school, being bullied, and some of the bullies I've met as an adult, and I'd be like, "Bitch, you won't hit me now," but no, I'm just joking. But I mean, it caused me to have to grow up with a lot of insecurities. Um, and a lot of people like, but you don't look like it. Insecurity is not a look. Insecurity is a feeling. And when you're called out of your name as a young kid, um, you grow up thinking that. You grow up being negative and not thinking you're good enough, not knowing what your self-worth is. So when you don't know what your self-worth is, you get caught up in situations, relationships, situationships, whatever that you shouldn't even be in. But you're in it because maybe somebody showed you a little bit of affection that you never received from your mom, that you never received from your dad. So it's so easy to get caught up in those relationships. I went to prison for the first time at the age of 19. I have two daughters. My youngest daughter, I had her while I was in prison. Um, and I got caught up in Bunny Clyde relationships, doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, out there robbing, stealing, selling drugs, doing the most. So after going in and out of prison 6 times, yeah, a lot of people say, "Well, you didn't learn your lesson." Not what lesson? Because prison don't rehabilitate you. It just teaches you how to be a little more slicker, a little more smarter, or whatever. You have to rehabilitate yourself, starting with your mindset. And my mindset at the time was, when I get out, I'm going to get some more money because that's how I survived. So I got married and I was in an abusive marriage where I was physically abused, verbally abused. It's called domestic violence. I was in one of those for a long period of time, longer than I should have been. And people say, "Well, I would never let anyone hit on me." Well, you probably wouldn't, but it doesn't happen always like that. In my situation, I didn't know the guy was like that until after a few after a year. Then the comments started, and one day I spoke my opinion on something and I got backhanded. And I'm like, whoa, I got slapped. So after I got slapped, I was like, whoa, I packed up my stuff real quick and I'm like, I'm out of here. But then you think about, well, this person did this for you, they did that for you, they did this for your kids. You feel like you owe them and you don't have anywhere to go. You're not stable financially. So it's a lot of reasons why people stay in situations that they stay in. And sometimes they feel like they can change the person. And that's the one thing that causes you to get caught up in these situations because you can't change anybody. They have to want to change for their self. So after getting caught up into that, finally getting out of that marriage, I was in that marriage for almost 10 years. Then I got out of prison. When I came home, the last time that I ever went to prison, when I came home, I decided, you know what? I'm tired. I'm done. I'm tired of running the streets. I'm tired of getting money out of the streets. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. And I decided to make a change for me and for my daughters. So I kind of left that lifestyle alone and quit having friendships that's in that lifestyle. And it was hard when I the last time I came home from prison, I decided that I wanted to do right. It was hard getting a job. It was hard finding a place to stay. Nobody wanted a convicted felon living in their on their properties. Jobs don't want to hire you. They're running all kind of background checks, but you still have to survive. And that's the thing. What people don't understand is when you come home and you don't have a support system or a support team or people that support you and help you get on your feet, 9 out of 10, you're going to go back to what you were doing that sent you to prison the first time. However, that was whatever those means were for survival. But I stuck it out. I stuck it through. I kept the faith in God because I made a promise to God that hey, I want to do right. I want to live right. I want a better life. Y'all see the shirt say faith? So you got to kind of stand on it. So I was standing on it, even though I was getting walked out of different jobs. May work one job 2 weeks, a month here, 3 weeks. Y'all should have seen me putting all them different paychecks together, trying to pay bills because you're getting walked off jobs. So it's like you lie on your application and you get the job but you don't keep it because when they do a background check you lose it. You be honest on the application, you don't get the job. So it's kind of like you danged if you do and danged if you don't. So it's like, wow, what do I do? So but I kept trusting God and kept the faith, and I ended up getting a job, getting hired permanently off of a lie. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. So, hey, off of a lie, and I had that job for a few years. It helped me get on my feet. It allowed me to secure a roof over me and my daughter's heads, and it allowed me to get insurance and do a 401k stuff that I had never done because I was always getting in trouble or getting fast money. So these are things that are new to me, getting a bank account, doing stuff the right way. And it was a great feeling. So after that, I was just one day, a few years ago, I was sitting there and it was tugging in my spirit to write a book. And I was like, I don't want to write a book. I don't want people to know my secrets. I don't want people to unbury my skeletons. I don't want people to know all this stuff about me, stuff that I've kept hidden and away from, everybody else. And it just kept being in my spirit, write a book, write a book, write a book. And I was like, you turn on the TV, you watching TV, commercial come on in your mind, little voice, write a book. Driving down the road, I need you to write a book. And you're like, I don't want to write no book. But what made me change my mind, because one night I was sitting there and I had just got through reading my Bible and the voice said, write a book. And I was like, And then it said, it's not for you, it's to help someone else. And I was like, wow, is it possible that my story could help someone else? It's like, I was like, little old me? Who am I to write a book for the world to read about And it's like the Spirit said it's going to help someone else. It's going to let people know that the same God that helped you and saved you can help someone else and save someone else. So I was like, okay, let me write my book. So I wrote my book. It's called Looking in the Mirror. I wrote my book in 2.5 days. And people are like, how did you write all them pages that quick? Because when you're talking about your life and you're talking about something that's honest and truthful, it's gonna flow. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about it. You just um write. You just tell your story. It's gonna flow naturally, and you just write. And it's and another thing, when I was writing my story, it was very therapeutic because things that you think you've buried, throughout the years, I'm going to suppress this, I'm going to bury that, I'm going to suppress that, I'm not going to talk about that. But after a while, as when you're writing a book, you have to remove those layers. So when you're removing those layers of stuff that has happened to you in your life, when you're writing a book about yourself and your life, your documentary, whatever you want to call it, when you're doing that, you're removing the layers. So stuff that you thought you had buried deep enough, it becomes unburied. Scabs that have healed, you're pulling the scab. Sores that have healed, you're pulling that off. So as I began to write my story, I began to cry in some instances because stuff that I had completely forgotten about, I started remembering. And it was like, wow. But the tears that I was crying was a different tear. Back then, they were tears of pain. This time, it was tears of release because I'm finally getting it out of me. I'm finally telling my story. I'm finally sharing it with someone else. I'm sharing it with the world. So the tears are totally different. These are tears of healing. Stuff that you thought that you were over and done with, and maybe you didn't cry about it then. You're being stubborn, or I'm too strong to cry, or I'm a big girl now, or I'm not gonna let that hurt me or affect me. But now you're crying about it. So my tears at this point were tears of healing. It was tears of getting it out of you, kind of replenishing, revitalizing yourself, you know. So after I wrote my book, I got a publisher, and they told me that my book would be ready in 45 to 60 days. My book was ready in 2 weeks. I had the hard copy in my hand on my doorstep in 2 weeks. So people was like, wow. And I say it was God. I was obedient in writing my book. And when you do stuff that God tells you to do, it's funny how everything falls into place. There's no sorrow. There's no there's no holdups. There's no, it's like everything just flows like it's supposed to. And you're like, wow, even I'm amazed. So after writing my book and it was published, people were like, well, Rosalind, you need to get a social media page. And I was like, at the time, I never had social media. I never did MySpace, never did none of that stuff. So I was like, okay, let me get a social media page. So I created a Facebook page and started talking about my book. After I started talking about my book, I said, you know what? It's a lot of people that won't take time to read a book, but they'll watch a movie. You have people that won't watch a movie, but they'll read. So I said, well, Lord, if you wanted my story to get out to everyone, maybe I need to do a movie. So the opportunity presented itself. I ended up doing my movie. So now I have a book called Looking in the Mirror, and I have a movie called Looking in the Mirror. And also, part two of Looking in the Mirror of my movie is going to be filmed next year. So people are reaching out to me from all over the world, and they're telling me that my book helped them. That's the satisfaction that I get when people watch my movie or they read my book and they say, wow, you don't look like what you've been through. Or, I needed to see this, or I read your book twice, or I watched your movie 3 or 4 times, or I read your book in one day. I couldn't even put it down. Or I purchased your book and bought my sister one and my cousin one. I mean, I'm reading all these comments, and it's like, that is what's fulfilling to me, because that makes me feel like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, share my story. So I don't know how other people feel, but to me, if I can save one person or help one person, I feel that, okay, I've done something great. I've done something good. To some people that may be something small, but when I hear people say, I read your story and it made me think, or I watched your movie and it had me in tears, or I read this or I read that, or it makes me feel good that my story can help someone else. Because when I was going through these things at the time, there wasn't a platform for it. You didn't talk about getting beat up. You didn't get talk about being whooped and going to school with black eyes, or going to school with your clothes stuck to your back. You didn't talk about those things. I'm a 60s baby. So that wasn't topics that we talked about. That was stuff you swept under the rug and kept it there. That was stuff where your parents told you, what goes on in my house stays in my house. You don't take it outside of the house. So those weren't topics that people were ready to talk about. Those weren't topics when your spouse is beating you up or calling you out your name or dragging you down the road by your hair, or pistol whipping you, or taking you in the orange grove and beating you up and nobody can hear you holler. Those weren't stuff people talked about. You didn't talk about that kind of stuff. If you got bruises in the meantime, you put that makeup on. That's why my book is called Looking in the Mirror, in my movie, because I would always have to look in the mirror and put on makeup to cover bruises, put on lipstick to cover busted lips. While you're looking in the mirror at yourself and you're patching yourself up, and you get a chance to talk to yourself like, is this living? Why am I living like this? You know what I'm saying? So when you don't know your self worth, these are things that you accept, these are things that you put up with, not knowing your self worth. And that is what I want people to take away from my book and my movie, is learning how to love yourself, teaching others how to treat you, not accepting stuff or putting up with stuff that you normally wouldn't, or you don't, because you don't have to. Your voice matters. You matter. You don't let anyone take your voice from you. And when you're allowing people to be abusive to you, physical, verbal, whatever, you're giving them control over you and you're letting them take your voice. Never let anyone take your voice. Never let anyone manipulate you. Never let anyone control you. You do matter. With that being said, I just want to that was a lot, y'all. I just want to empower, encourage, give someone hope, and know your self-worth. Know that you do matter. Learn how to love you. Self-love is very important. Love on yourself. Tell yourself you love you. No matter how many times nobody else told you that they loved you, you tell yourself that you love you. So y'all got to see like what Rosalind B is about a little bit. You got to hear a little story. And then of course you can read my book, Looking in the Mirror. You could go watch my movie, Looking in the Mirror. It's available right now on Tubi, Amazon Prime, NBC Peacock, Roku, Vudu, Hulu, Plex. For real, it's on all those platforms. Go watch it. So, y'all have a good one. Thank y'all for joining me today. Y'all have a blessed one. Have a great day on purpose. And remember, self love. It's nothing wrong with loving yourself. Have a good one. Thank you for joining me on Realistically Speaking. See y'all next week. Hey, and if y'all, you kind of feeling your girl, you kind of like me a little bit, check me out on some of these social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and whatever else we may be coming up with. But you can have a chance to see your girl. See y'all later.